Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the Town of Somers Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The date is October 17th, 2023. Denise, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Hardin?
Here.
Mr. Lansky?
Here.
Mr. Newman?
Here.
Mr. Padavani?
Here.
Chairman Canestra?
Here.
Thank you.
I request everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we're going to go right into the first item on the agenda this evening. First item is that of David and Maureen Valvano. This is an application to renew a special exception use permit as a new owner for an existing accessory apartment in the basement of an existing one-family dwelling in an R40 residential district at 3 Gwynn Drive, Yorktown Heights. Is someone here to represent the applicant? Yes. Hi. Could you please come up to the microphone and just give us your name and address, please?
Hi everyone, Dave Valvano, 3 Gwynn Drive, Yorktown Heights, New York.
Okay. And it looks like you are hello Melissa, how are you? I'm sorry.
How are you?
Good, good. It looks like you are the new owner of this property?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anyone currently residing in the apartment at this time?
No.
It's vacant, okay. All right. And you have plans to possibly lease the apartment out?
Possibly.
Okay. Haven't made that decision yet, but you want the option open?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Tom, I'm talking to our building inspector now. Tom, have you had a chance to go out there and inspect the apartment, and is it in compliance?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Then one more question, Tom. Have there been any complaints or other issues regarding this accessory apartment?
There have been none.
Okay, thank you.
I noticed on the checklist, square feet isn't listed. Do you know the square feet?
I don't.
It should be further on in your package. There is another checklist that has those blanks filled in. I think 2 of them were sent to you. I completed those blank, the ones that were blank, following my inspection of the premises. I can tell you what it is if you don't have that completed checklist in your packet.
Yeah.
We don't see it in ours.
see it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that question is blank on ours.
Okay, so the square footage of the apartment is 650, and that's per the planning board resolution from the original approval.
Okay. And this basement apartment has two ways of egress, I assume, one outside and then one up into the main structure?
Yeah, and egress from the bedroom to the exterior as well.
Okay, okay. All right. Any further questions of the applicant regarding this apartment? Okay.
No.
I'd like to, I'm going to ask if anybody here in the audience wishes to speak in regard to this application. Any comments? Also, we'll open it up to online. If anybody in the public wishes to log on to this meeting, you can do so. Paul, if you could put on the login numbers. So anybody watching this meeting at home, you are welcome to call in using one of the numbers. Input the Zoom ID number, and then we'll bring you online and you can ask any questions or make any comments that you'd like. So there's no one here who wishes to say anything in regard to this application? No? Okay. Any further comments from the board? Any questions?
Everything looks good to me.
Yep. Paul, do we have anyone looking to come on?
No, we do not.
Okay. Okay, this is last call. Any further questions from the board? No? No. Sir, do you have anything to say in regard to your application further before we vote?
No?
Okay. All right. Can I have a motion as to the type of action?
Type 2.
Second.
Ms. DiPolito?
Aye.
Mr. Hardin?
Aye.
Mr. Lansky?
Aye.
Mr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Padavani?
Aye.
Chairman Canestra?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion whether we're going to grant the special exception use permit for this accessory apartment?
I move that we grant the special exception usage.
Second.
Ms. DiPolito?
Aye.
Mr. Hardin?
Aye.
Mr. Lansky?
Aye.
Mr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Padavani?
Aye.
Chairman Canestra?
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations, your application's granted. The permit is good for 7 years. After that time, you'd have to come back and visit us again.
Okay, great.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to the second item on the agenda this evening. This is of Elizabeth Lupino. This is an application for 2 variances for an existing above-ground swimming pool and an existing deck to an existing one-family dwelling in an R10 residential district at 10 Central Way, Purdy's. Is someone here to represent the applicant?
Yes, good evening, Chairperson and members. My name is Wayne Spector. I'm the attorney for the applicant. The applicant is elderly and not physically able to be here tonight. Her daughter would have been here, but she had surgery as well. Nonetheless, I'm authorized to represent them and to present on their behalf for this.
Okay, that's fine. Could you briefly describe the application and what you're asking for?
Just a bit of a history. There was this house, I believe, was built approximately 1965. When my clients purchased it, it had an existing deck on it, and that deck was then added to, and a swimming pool, small swimming pool, was added to the deck itself. It's actually more like a large hot tub. I don't know if anybody has gone to see it. It came to the attention of the family that because of her age, the family was looking into what their options are to sell the house at some point. And they were told, they did some research, and they found out that there was some issues regarding whether or not it was permits were ever closed out. Apparently, according to the department, there were some open permits regarding the deck, and so that started the process. And they hired an architect, and we met with the building inspector, the building department. There's a lot of other issues here regarding eventually legalizing it, but this is the beginning process of the legalization. Our clients are working with the architect and working with the building department to get all the other code issues resolved. But the issue here that we're here before you for has to do with a small area of this deck and the pool itself, which exceed into the setback area. The total setback, or the total variance that's requested, there are 2 of them technically, but in actuality, they're both on the same location, the deck itself. So there's there's a 4-foot, 1-foot rear yard variance required for the deck itself. Because 25 feet are required, and 20, and it's not the entire deck. Again, if you look at the plans, I don't know if the plans are available to be.
We have the plans in front of us, yes.
So you can see it's really just a jut out of the existing deck, and this has been present for quite some time. I don't know the exact number of years, but for years. I believe the building department will tell you that they've started this process with my clients several years ago. So it's this jut out section which exceeds into the setback by 4.1 feet, and then separately, the pool itself, which is located in this section of the deck, which is we're seeking a variance for, exceeds the setback by, I think it's 0.3 feet. So it was requested that we present this as 2 variances requested, although they technically are actually the same location of the deck itself. One is for the pool at 0.3 feet, and the other is 4.1 feet for the actual section, which was built to provide, I'm assuming to provide a little clearance around this pool area at the time. We were told, obviously, in order to move forward with the legalization and all the other issues that have to be addressed from a code standpoint, that this has to be legalized from a zoning standpoint in terms of the location. So it's relatively, as you could see, in terms of the total square footage that exceed into the setback area, it's relatively minor, not substantial. It's been in existence. It doesn't have any extreme issues as far as visibility or environmental issues. It's not, it doesn't interfere as far as, in terms of the factors that, you're required to review. I can go over them one by one if you wish, but, it appears that, except for the last one, which is always problematic about the self-created one, but which is not definitive, everything else seems to be within the, satisfactory within the various factors, and in particular, the degree of substantiality is, when you look at it as a whole. So, and as I said, all the other issues regarding legality, code, compliance are being addressed separately with the building department. Obviously, there's no CO that's going to be issued as a result of any variance issued until all the other code issues are resolved. And so my clients are working with the building department and hope to get it resolved so that the house could be sold.
So my understanding is that this is an above-ground pool, and they built a deck kind of around it.
That's exactly,
Kind of what happened here.
yeah, yes.
Because I don't see any fence here also.
Well, there is a,
Fence, I said.
well, there is a railing around the deck, and that may have to be, again, the building department may require changes to that railing, whether it's height or style or structure, and that will be addressed accordingly.
Because I have a feeling if we do grant you approval, it will be pending, subject to the C of O and complying with all requirements. We're not,
Absolutely. You're
know.
not granting a CO. Only the building inspector can do that, and it has to be in compliance with all code, including the height and type of railing or fencing. So, I mean, that's the nature of this application. Obviously, it's, we're at the mercy of your board, but it is a fairly minor issue. I doubt very highly, but of course, I'm sure that if there's anybody who objects, we'll find out tonight, but I'm not aware of anybody objecting. My clients have been living there peaceably for quite a number of years without objection. So
okay,
that's the nature of this application.
okay. Questions from the board?
That jut out around it goes in how many feet from the variance?
Well, the total jut out into the setback is 4.1 feet.
Okay,
The pool itself is 0.3 feet,
right on.
but it's in that area that's also being, it's in that jut out area.
Thank you.
I mean, looking at the overhead view, it really doesn't seem to be even close to the property behind it, and then you've got a lot of property on that side of the house.
That's correct. It's fairly private back there as far as when I was there and observed it. It doesn't appear to be a site issue or an aesthetics issue. It looks like a deck. It is a deck, not to be confused with a duck, but it is. It's pretty non-obtrusive, and it is definitely within the character of the neighborhood in terms of the decks that exist, except for the fact that it does exceed into the setback area by a minor amount.
Any further questions from the board? Why don't we take this out to the public and let me see what
Sure.
people have to say. Does anybody here wish to speak in regard to this application? And we're also going to open this up online if anybody would like to call in and comment in regard to this application. Let me ask you, what's between the deck and the adjoining property? Like, is there trees or things to the closest property line?
Well, so there's vegetation at the rear of the property, and this deck, and this part of the deck is pretty much centered. So there's a lot more deck, which is not exceeding the size limits.
Right.
And there's just normal separation between these properties, landscaping or anything similar to that.
So it's an R10 district, so I realize the lots are smaller and.
Exactly. So, but there's the normal distance between the houses. Nothing exceeds or juts into any other side yard setbacks.
No
Again,
issues with septic or wellhead?
No, we had to submit a septic, I think a septic test in order to even be here tonight. It's part of the application.
Okay. Okay, Paul, are we getting anyone calling on?
No, we are not.
Okay. All right, last chance for the public. Anybody who wishes to speak in regard to this application? Okay, any further comments or questions from the board? Sir, did you have anything further to say before we vote on the application?
No, I just thank you for listening, and I appreciate having the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you on behalf of my clients.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's time to entertain a motion. A motion as to the type of application.
Type 2.
Second.
You're on mute, Denise.
I'm sorry. Ms. DiPolito?
Aye.
Mr. Hardin?
Aye.
Mr. Lansky?
Aye.
Mr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Padavani?
Aye.
Chairman Canestra?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion if we're going to grant the variance, actually the two variances? And also, I think we should consider the condition that although the variance would be granted, it is subject to all building department requirements and review in a C of O, if we were to approve it. Can I have a motion from someone?
Yes, I move we accept as proposed both variances and say that those variances are subject to the rest of the rules that will be laid down by the construction department,
Building department.
building department.
Second.
Was that you, Paul?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. DiPolito?
Aye.
Mr. Hardin?
Aye.
Mr. Lansky? Mr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Padavani?
Aye.
Chairman Canestra?
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations, sir. The application has been granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Next item on the agenda this evening is that of Lenita Realty, Inc. This is an application for two side yard buffer variances for a new commercial building in an Ole district at 295 Route 100, Somers. Is someone here to represent the applicant?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Stephen Rabel. I'm with the law firm of McCullough, Goldberger, and Stout here on behalf of Lenita Realty, Inc. I have with me tonight Rick DiNardo from Ownership and our engineer, Ralph Alfonzetti. So, you have the
And if you have any, any of these boards can be put right up on our board right there, so that we can all see what's going on.
Okay. So just a little bit of background on the property. As you may or may not be aware, a few years back, this property was rezoned from R80 to MFR 100. The property is currently improved with a single-family home that's fairly dilapidated. I don't know if you're familiar with the site. It's about 2.3 acres, and it was rezoned to accommodate multifamily development on site, which would have consisted of 2 multifamily buildings, 24 units, along with 46 off-street parking spaces and associated. As time has gone by, the applicant has looked at the site and they've thought about how this site interacts with the surrounding neighborhood, significantly this transitional neighborhood. You know, to the north, you have residentially zoned property, which is largely vacant. To the west, you have single homes. To the south, you have the Froggy's Deli, the gas station, the construction yard, and the Somers Highway Department. And then across the street, you have the the Office Business 100 District. So
This application was, this property was before us a couple of years back, I recall. Where they, remember we had a whole big discussion. I think they wanted us to kind of approve a use that it was not zoned for. They denied at that time, so.
So the zoning was changed to allow the multifamily, but in lieu of moving forward with the multifamily, the thinking was, why not approach this site with something less impactful, less traffic, less utilities, less impact on the town as a whole? So what's proposed now is high-end self-storage. It's proposed to be 2 stories tall. It's designed to look residential in nature. And the thinking is this is going to have significantly less impact on the town and its resources while providing a service that's so far not present in Somers. So the property was once again rezoned to the OLI, in which self-storage facilities are a permitted principal use. Now, the OLI has a side yard buffer requirement where it abuts a residential district. Now, the way it's written, it indicates that the idea is to screen residential uses, and as I'm going to show you here, the 2 side yards at issue are this northern side yard here and the southern side yard here. So, if you can't see it, this strip of land...
Steve, I'm sorry. Can you grab your mic? Thank you.
Is this better?
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Denise. So
You're welcome.
if you can see the property lines, this is actually a flag lot that starts to the south of the property and then works its way west. So this is the flag pole, so to speak, and the main flag. This is where the single-family residence is. The buffer requirement to the rear, where the residence sits, is actually exceeded per the code requirement, so there's no need for a variance as it abuts an actual residence. The variances come into play on the flagpole strip of land, which is currently unimproved, and then here along the northern lot line. This is in separate ownership, but appears to be a private driveway that serves this lot adjacent to the west and potentially this lot on Anarock Drive. So the variances that we're seeking are buffers for a vacant strip of land, which then goes into the public right-of-way for Highview Terrace, which abuts the commercial OLI district here, as well as a driveway, which then abuts additional vacant land.
So it seems like there's a driveway on either side of where you're looking for, or there potentially could be a driveway.
There potentially could be a driveway here. I don't believe this is currently improved with anything, because this lot, I believe, is served by this existing driveway. Could they build another one? Maybe.
It probably would make more sense, though, to put a driveway, not all the way flagging to Route 100, but somewhere off of Highview Terrace.
But you have Highview Terrace,
It goes up, yeah.
and you also are only supposed to have 1 driveway. So he'd have to go back through site plan to remove a driveway, to add a driveway. It
Last
makes
time
sense
this
that it would
was
be-
before us, there was the big steep slope.
Yeah, there's a significant grade.
But this has already been to the zone, to the,
Zoned it.
Right.
they re.
Town's board is rezoned.
The town, yeah.
So it's as of right for the use, the only thing we're talking about is the vegetative buffer.
Right.
On the sides.
2 40-foot side yard vegetative buffer setbacks from access lanes, not from homes.
Well, they're
Yeah, but where would
40 or
the
50
driveway be?
It's 50 feet is required.
You have
technically
10.
Provided, so 40 foot.
is the variance.
What side?
So to the south, there could be a driveway. That's the flag pole of the flag lot, and that to a lot that is not currently developed.
It is developed. There's a home to the rear, and that rear yard buffer is more than adequate per zoning. So
But it's developed, but they don't use,
they use the drive on the north side.
So the drive is
It doesn't affect that. You're gonna see it on Highview Terrace. So given that it's only 10 feet and not 50 feet, maybe it makes sense to have some vegetation, right?
Right.
And it does make sense to have vegetation. Maybe it makes sense for us to discuss what, if it's gonna be a smaller lot there.
well, the vegetation buffer is going to be as required, correct? It's just a setback from the building to the buffer.
No, the building is set back adequately under code. It's the width of the vegetated buffer.
So Tom, what I'm
Okay.
saying is, they're supposed to have 50 feet of plants, and if they're gonna only have 10, let's make sure they have some evergreens, and, because they're really only protecting Highview Terrace when people drive up.
Right.
It's only a 2-story building, and that should do that, and pretty much on both sides, as long as they have a plan with some density there, it'll serve the purposes. The code's really not intended to protect roads, but it would be nice.
Yeah.
Oh, and
I mean,
okay, it's not that the building is 10 feet off the property line.
No.
It's the drive.
It's a drive.
Your asphalt lot or your drive.
It's just that,
No,
it's 10
it's
feet of
it's the
vegetation.
trees, it's the shrubbery.
Supposed to have 50 feet
Supposed
of,
to have 50 and they only have 10
They only
because
have
their
10.
driveway began, okay, because their property asphalt parking lot in effect
But
is covered.
I would love to comment that that's one of the nicest self-storage facilities I've ever seen.
oh, that is the nicest one I've ever seen.
And I'd like to compliment the architect and engineer for putting that forward.
And-
It's nicer than Froggy's, nicer than the other.
And the house, the decrepit house that is there has been an eyesore for a long time.
Boo Radley.
Yeah, I would,
Without any vegetation. It's really awesome.
Yeah, right now you can see the house, you don't want to see the house. So this is certainly an improvement. The only thing I think we should talk about really is
The type of
in
vegetation.
that 10 foot that they're gonna provide, that they provide some density in there, so we make sure we get the most out of that. If we're gonna grant a variance, let's make sure that that's densely packed, and they're not gonna put in small plants, and they're gonna have, right off the bat, have some strong evergreens in there.
to really screen it from the road.
Do a good job.
And then could you just tell me more about to the north again? The adjacent lot after the flagpole there's a residential lot there that could be developed but isn't currently?
This line,
Potentially. It's a fairly large piece of property.
this is high.
Right.
I'm told it's owned by IBM.
Oh, okay.
So it's in a residential district, but whether it ever gets developed as residential use versus an IBM use, I don't know.
So the property to the north is in a residential district but owned by IBM.
Yep, if you look across the street, Lawton Adams has some nice spruces in there.
They do.
Essentially, if they do a good job with that, they're protecting both sides, and we're getting something much nicer. And this appears to be as setback, if not more setback, than the existing houses. So the front's better. They got some stonework there, and the sides we gotta get some density of evergreens and hear what the public has to say.
So this is a 2-story storage facility. So, right, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so obviously there's gotta be elevators in the building,
Yes.
okay, and there must be a way to access trucks backing up or something, people with pickups or whatever, vans backing up to be able to access elevators and things like that, right? So where would the loading areas be, so to speak?
Have that marked out.
You want to tell us about what a high, what did you call it? High-class storage facility?
It's one that looks that pretty.
It's one that looks that pretty.
Evening again. Just to give you a little perspective, we actually like to call it a boutique self-storage facility. And because we're not gearing towards a large commercial-based clientele, we're gearing towards climate-controlled, small storage facilities that clients such as Heritage, where they don't have a basement and many don't have a garage, or people storing wines, or they're storing anything that needs antiques, anything that needs climate control. It's going to be manned. It's going to be staffed. We offer pickup and drop off on all the storage facilities, and there's small, customized, individual units.
units are you planning?
We haven't figured out, based on the final square footage and based on how we're gonna lay out access to it. The access is not gonna, we generally don't expect large trucks or any tractor trailer, because that's just not the client base that we're marketing it towards.
But a van or pickup would be delivered.
A van would definitely be there.
And there has to be fairly large size elevators in there to move.
Well, you're not gonna move anything more than that's on a skid, so you're not gonna have anything larger than a 3-foot wide elevator.
So you
Not gonna be moving cars or anything.
You must have given some conceptual thought to how big the individual space is going to be.
Based on current market analysis in the area, units that are 10 by 15 and 10 by 20 are the largest demand. When you start getting closer to city areas, it's 5 by 5, 5 by 10. But we're going to be working with an architect that specifically works on self-storage once they've done their research study as to what the market demands.
So you're talking about room size?
Room size, yes.
Okay.
So where do you access this building from? I mean, do you access for delivery from the sides, the back?
You drop it.
So I guess there's garages directly in front, right? Which,
Well,
So if you look at the first floor has all garages. Those are individual
so
garages.
you just go back up right into it.
Back right into it. There's a double set of doors in the front, mirrored also in the back, that is 6 feet wide, so allows you to come in and out.
And then there'd be elevators.
Elevators will be in the middle in one central location.
What's the whole square footage of the building again?
Each floor is about 20,000 square feet.
So 40,000 square feet.
Yes.
Okay.
but you're not using the garage doors for cars.
Well, you can if you like.
I mean, just to put stuff in and take stuff out.
car could be stored in
You're
there.
not going to store cars.
Collectors' cars.
Oh, okay.
If you go down to areas like Katona, where the Katona self-storage, that's a large part of their market is people that store a collectible car.
And one of the things you sometimes see in storage units are contractors or tradesmen that sort of almost work out of these things. I mean, do you have a way to?
Well, we could whatever if their vehicle fits in the garage, great. But the previous project had 54 parking spaces. We're only down to 16. So we don't anticipate using any outside parking or storage. Everything is confined and controlled inside the building.
I was going to say, we wouldn't want to see contractors storing, supplies, materials, et cetera, outside the building. That's not the intent.
No.
Also, we don't want to see that because that's going to take away from our market that we're trying to attract.
Yeah.
Right. When I first heard of self-storage, I think of like square block, ugly buildings, orange, and I would be like, you don't have a shot at all.
And this, as you
And this is much nicer.
the design comes from it was a carriage house and it was expanded upon the design of a carriage house from New England. So, we definitely want to bring something that's going to really add to the entrance of Somers and something that's going to stand out and it's going to transition well from the industrial to the residential.
Right. Sure is.
We have cameras and security on the property.
Absolutely.
And we're going from multifamily to commercial ratables.
Yeah, and the other thing was the previous project was 3 stories. This is only 2 stories. So it brings it down.
And obviously, you'd be tearing down that house on the property, and
Unless somebody wants it.
there's that thing is really in bad shape.
So can you talk more about the actual, so given that we're going to have a much smaller buffer, what you're going to, do you have any thoughts about how we're going to make that dense?
What I could explain to you is if you look outside to the project we built here, Wrights Court, 3 buildings there, we weren't required, we were required to do 30% of the plantings that we did. We added. So we added 110 evergreens that we were not required to put because we want to buffer the project from the neighborhood and for itself. You want to give it its own identity. And we're going to follow the same thing here. We're going to, we like to put the plantings, we like to buffer, we like to keep it separate from everybody else. Because again, we want to be good neighbors. We don't want to, people complaining, whether it's lights or noise or whatever it is. Not that we expect a lot of that.
Will somebody be at the site all the time?
Yes. Well, not at night, but during normal business hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to have bathrooms on the side, obviously.
Bathrooms aren't required. But, you know,
If you have somebody there all day, you're gonna.
Well,
have
there's
that
going to
bathroom.
be,
oh, there will be for the employees.
Right, for the employees, right. Right. And it will have to obviously have on-site septic and well.
On-site septic, but, you know, you're looking at, again, we went from 24 bathrooms down to 1.
Yeah, it's very much limited, obviously.
Yeah.
But you still got to have a place for septic and things like that.
And it's all on it's on our engineering.
sure, I'm sure.
Proposed septic location, yeah, I do see that, okay.
So let's talk about this buffer. Tell us what you're going to put in the buffer.
We are open to the recommendations and the suggestions of your board or whether it's the planning board or whoever decides on that. But, you know, we'll gladly fill in as you feel is necessary. But like I says, you know, I could speak, you know, from our track record. If you look there at any of the projects that we've done, there's an abundance of buffer area, you know, whether it's evergreens or it's a balance of.
What was the address of that property you mentioned?
I think it's incorrect on the
Yeah, it is.
on here. It's further south.
It's incorrect.
The
It's,
property you mentioned that they.
oh, right next
Right
door.
sport,
Right next to
330
us here.
202.
Yeah.
You do an aerial from there, you'll see how many evergreens.
You've done a very fine job at that.
Thank you very much. And also Caramount across the way, same thing.
Yep. How tall is this, this structure?
30 feet? 30 feet except for the peak of the corner of the tower.
Okay. Exterior siding, is it like a hardy plank or?
Hardy plank.
Right.
which is nice.
We haven't received anything from the planning board, any recommendations or memos regarding this?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So, I mean, really what we're talking about is just, if we're gonna allow them to decrease the buffer, that we wanna make sure we're doing something similar for the public, which is to do the screening. And so how we, you know, like, the planning board can determine final plans.
What was that?
Sorry, I need Bart to take the microphone a little closer.
Oh, sorry. You know, the planning board can determine final plans. We could just talk about density, or we could actually talk about screening and evergreens, whatever the board.
Well, we could leave it to them to come up with a certain height and a certain density or whatever, and then.
Yeah, we're not landscapers.
So,
Let me ask you this. The building is very attractive. It's long. How come the decision wasn't made to compress the building and maybe go back a little bit?
We tried to stay as far away from the rear neighbor as possible.
So you're trying to stay away from the residential
Residential, there's
area?
one home, there's actually 2 homes on the road.
Okay.
So we tried to stay as far away as possible, but yet keep it, you know, a reasonable distance from the road. You know, we don't want to get too.
But your property is accessing and going away on Route 100.
Right, there's an existing curb cut.
Yeah,
Right now, we're going to use the same one.
Okay. Any further questions of the applicant at this time?
let's see what the public has to say.
Yeah, that's what I want to.
The public.
Okay. So we're going to open this up to public comment at this point in time. Anybody who'd like to call in, please do so. If there's anybody here that would like to speak, please come up to the microphone, give us your name and address, and we'd be happy to hear what you have to say.
I'm Dick Canary. I live on 11 Anorak Drive. And I have.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you please put the microphone towards you?
Done.
Thank
Sure, if you
you.
could just give us your name and address
I'm
again.
Dick Canary. I live on 11 Anorak Drive. And I've been there since 78. I have one question. What is the distance between the building and the property line on the north and south sides?
Well, I could tell you, looking at what I'm seeing here, if I were to, while I'm looking at the plan from the building, okay, to the property line, it looks like it's 55 feet, 7 inches maybe,
Side yards?
on the side.
On the side yards?
Side yard, yeah, to the building. I'm looking at 55.7, 55 feet, 7. And on the north, let me see if there's a measure.
40.
About the closest corner,
40.5.
40.5 is the corner.
Corner of the
Most of it is further than that.
Okay, that's less than normal setback, I think. But, okay,
And the issue is why we're talking only about a 10-foot buffer
Yeah.
is because beyond the building they have asphalt driveways.
Right.
So, and then there's the 10-foot buffer on,
They do meet, they would meet setback, they just don't meet buffer.
They do, exactly.
They do.
right.
Okay, yeah, I interpreted that incorrectly too. One comment on the Highview Terrace side. Due to the slope of the land, it falls off rapidly on the north side of Highview Terrace. I really doubt if they're going to be able to plant evergreen trees. They may be able to do that within 10, 15 feet of Route 100. But as you go further back,
Go further up Highview Terrace.
yeah,
Challenge.
I've walked that enough times.
Right.
I don't see them planting any significant shrubs there. And it's
We'll let them
below, you
comment.
can see the shrubs from the road.
Okay, we'll let them comment in regard to that. And then keep in mind, even between their property line and Highview Terrace, we now have that flag lot property.
Right.
You know, so there's more buffer there, so to speak, yeah.
I never heard of a flag lot. That's not very wide, is it?
No, a flag lot is usually what a flag lot means is there's kind of a short strip of land and then it opens up, like a flag would look.
Okay, so it's almost nothing. My reaction initially was, okay, number one is a
Maybe the grades are.
20,000 square foot footprint. Doesn't look like a nice residential house, as it was referred to.
Did you take a look at the diagrams?
I tried to as best as I could.
No, just move your microphone, just walk right around the corner and you got nice pictures. Help yourself.
No,
Okay.
to me, that's not a residential area. And it's all 2.5 acres on Highview Terrace and Anorak Drive. Froggy's Deli, I'm gonna say, is 50 feet or more some Highview Terrace, okay? Okay, which this is, I thought they were approaching that.
Couldn't hear it on the phone when I talk.
Go ahead, that was inadvertent.
Oh, okay, and then, Ari's Automotive has decent, room on either side. I was just worried that it would really look out of place. I was thinking of it would be very, very close to Highview Terrace, okay?
Sure.
And number one is, I don't look, to me, that's not a residential, house-like. It was referred to as there's a stone wall, there's, in front. There really isn't. Someone gave them permission to just dump a lot of rocks on the property.
No.
They're gonna add.
No, but it's not there now. And
Yeah, they'll build it. It would be a condition of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep in mind, this will go to planning board, and planning board, per the plans, you know, if you look at their plan, they have a proposed stone wall with fence on top, which is
Right.
shown in the diagram. They'll have to comply with all those things.
Okay, it was said the stone wall was there.
Oh.
Okay, and also the property doesn't look like anything across the street, I don't think.
Across the
Don't-
street, across what?
The building
100?
referring to what they built across the 100 from
Oh,
here.
right,
Yeah.
right place.
This, I don't think is gonna look anything like that.
Just keep in mind that this project is not here before us for permission to go forward.
Right.
Only looking at the vegetation requirements on the side of it. So we're not,
Yeah, I appreciate that, which I didn't do before I arrived here tonight. But,
Go before the planning board, when they review this whole plan. You can go and make any comments, and planning board could decide to change things, you know.
plus the comment on the south side, on the Highview Terrace side, if you look at the shape of the topology of the land, I think they're gonna have trouble planting stuff that is meaningful.
That's a good comment to the planning board.
We'll address that.
And that's mostly the flag, right? That's mostly
Flag.
the access drive.
It's
It's not
pole.
their property. That's where the slope is. And the other thing just to mention is, it's now been rezoned to OLI, so it's not gonna be a house again now.
I understand that.
So this is one of the more attractive warehouses I've seen. Within that context, they're doing a good job.
I agree with you on that statement. Okay, in my mind, it doesn't fit in the area.
Okay.
Yeah, but the town board made that.
I agree. Okay.
You know, one other thing I did want to mention, that, you know, to the property line, it's 55 feet, but then if you were to add from the property line to Highview Terrace, you're probably looking at another, if I'm just eyeballing it here, 75 feet, maybe more. So you may be looking at, well over 100 feet of space between Highview Terrace, the road, and the building. So,
Plantings.
Okay,
with plantings in it. So, I mean, it's something we have to consider, just
right.
hopefully further away and wouldn't be an eye issue.
Okay, fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Vic, there is a caller, that came in. I muted them because I could hear them, but I think they're gonna unmute.
Okay,
So
yes.
I think you're good to go.
Okay, hello caller, welcome to the meeting. Could you please give us your name and address?
Yeah, this is Dominic Veltri from number 3 Anorak Drive. One comment I'd like to make in the agenda for the meeting tonight, it references under the item for Glenida Realty, address number 295, Route 100. I believe that's the New York State Police Barracks. I believe the address is 259, Route 100. So I'd like to have that corrected in the minutes as well.
Yep,
Oh, it
For
should
the
be
record?
259, okay.
259.
That's correct.
Mr.
Yeah,
Veltri,
your
this is
agenda says
Denise.
295.
Yeah, this is Denise, Mr. Veltri. Clearly, I made a mistake, so I will make sure that it's reflected in the minutes, but thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Okay, and then thank you, Denise. And then one concern that I do have with the side buffer along Highview Terrace. When you come down Highview Terrace now and you get to the stop sign at Route 100, it's very difficult to make a turn on that road. So if the vegetation that's being contemplated for a variance, it needs to have a sight line so that the residents of Anorak Drive and Highview Terrace have the ability to come down the street and make a right or a left turn onto Route 100 without an obstruction of vegetation, because it's already an issue if you live there, especially in the mornings when there's trucks that are parked there. We'd also like to have no parking signs on the northbound side of Highview Terrace so that nobody parks in front of the facility, because that would make it difficult as well.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the current
Okay.
plan allows for parking of any kind, and yeah, your point with the vegetation and pulling out is good. That may be
That's the other,
best addressed to planning board.
but that's the other property, really. There's, as you said, 70 feet or so of buffer before you get to this subject property. And that's the sightline issue.
Yeah.
So that's somebody who's not before us.
That'll be planning.
But I would say that the state police could use a better buffer. We're allowed to address that.
Okay. All right, sir, it's a very good point, and I think it's something that I would certainly encourage you to speak with the planning board about. But remember, there is a flag lot property in between the applicant's lot and Highview Terrace, so there may be, as Mr. Lansky mentioned, there may be some issues there as far as, what can be done with that property. But certainly,
Very good.
I think addressing your concerns to the planning board would be something good when this is before.
All right, thank you.
Did you have any other comments in regard to this application?
No, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else here wish to speak in regard to this application? Sir, yeah, please come up and just give me your name and address.
My name is George. Is this too loud?
No?
Okay.
Doing good.
George Azar. I'm on 265 Route 100,
Okay.
which is the north side of the flag lot that we're looking at, where they have a right of way for the house that's behind the said property.
Right.
Looking at what we were just seeing in detail here, and also on the map that we saw looking at Lawton Adams, Froggy's Deli, and part of Route 100, that IBM section is zoned residential. Is that correct? It is zoned residential?
That's my understanding. Tommy, can you confirm that?
So you're talking about the lot to the north of this property that we asked?
Yeah.
Correct.
It would have to be, otherwise he wouldn't have gotten this building department referral for the
Right.
zoning variance.
So that's why he has to get a variance, because it is residentially zoned property.
Well,
So that being said, my flag lot or my driveway in degree would be considered a residential lot as well, plus the lot that they're using for the right of way to get to, or use my property to get to their lot. in a sense, this property is being encapsulated by residential property from Highview Terrace all the way up to the Burger Barn. And that is slated as residential property. I mean, I have an interest in there because it is a value to my property of having commercials. But this is now being zoned or being proposed as a zoning of commercial, light commercial.
That's already happened.
It's already done.
Town board has rezoned the property OLI, so
That's a done.
zoning change is done.
So I missed the meetings that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, their use is as of right now, but it's just a matter of us
Now it's
deciding
all about the buffer.
about the buffer.
Right.
So if that was the case and something like this was, it's all approved and everything's get done with the buffer, and I think everybody is asking for certainly some height, increasing the height for whatever's going to be the plantings between.
Yep.
And also possibly a little bit more thickness where there's a little bit more growth between, beyond the actual evergreens. Maybe there's something that's maybe 12 feet high where if you are at the street level, or in my case, in the driveway level, because I really don't want to see a commercial piece of property.
So just so I understand, your driveway borders this property to the north. That's how you enter your house. Okay.
Yeah.
So that existing driveway on the plan is yours
Mm-hmm.
to the back lot. Okay.
And he has
Back
a little gore here in that little triangle.
But we haven't been asked about that tonight, I don't think.
Yeah.
We've been asked about the sides, we haven't been asked.
Yeah, so there's only, on the north side, which is him, a lot of it is more expansive. There's one section which dips down to 10 feet.
Right.
It expands from there. And so that little bit, obviously, we want to be as careful as possible. But they have more room in these other sections to do additional plantings.
Yeah, they could certainly do more.
Yep.
It's not proposed on this plan. I mean, the 10-foot
This
vegetative buffer goes.
That's a very good point, Tom. And maybe that's part of the mitigation is that it's 10 foot where it can be 10 foot, but in these other areas
where it could maybe be 20 feet, maybe
let's
say it should be 20 feet.
Yeah, we could tailor the zoning variance so that it's 10 foot where needed, and then it increases in those other areas. Because 10 feet's enough to get some evergreens in there, no problem. But it would be nice to have something double layered or something and stacked for the areas that they have room.
Right. 'Cause maybe
So it'd be on the northeastern.
And then we can leave it to the planning board. So essentially, on the north side, for that section, which I don't see a clean dimension, but it looks like about a 40-foot section, you would give them a 10-foot variance, and then where applicable, the variance would. Well, I say a 40-foot variance, obviously 50 down to 10, and then it would become a 20-foot variance for the next section, and the other section heading back.
to use as much of that available
Yeah,
space for buffer. Yeah.
use as much, and we could kind of just pencil that in as an exhibit, and we put that into the variance and give this gentleman a little bit more buffer where possible. And then I would say on the south side, they have a stone wall there, which is kind of in the middle of the buffer. I don't know that, given that the grades, that's helpful, unless it's going to be towards the edge and become a retaining wall.
You don't need a retaining wall, though.
They don't need a retaining wall because the slope comes before here.
Yeah.
So it becomes flat. So essentially, I would just make sure that that stone wall, which is shown, is going to be right in the middle where the planting should be. So I would just make sure that that whole 10 foot is vegetative, and where they have a little bit more room in the back, it becomes 20 feet.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why the applicant wants a stone wall in that one section there. Talk about
Very odd.
on the side of the building, right? There's like one section of a stone wall that seems to start and end. But we'll talk to you. We'll get to you in a minute.
And I think that was my case, just had making sure that we had multiple use depth of the buffer.
Okay.
And is there anything that does constrain us to the height, Rick? Is there anything that, like on that height, you got a 30-foot height to the ridge? 28? And what are these out here? We're to the left of us over here by the,
More than 20, like 30, because we have 35 foot. Here it's only 30 foot, there it's 35.
so I think,
We have 32.
I think the concern of the people coming down from the adjacent road is that, I think you might have stated that the evergreens that you plant, they have to be enormous to block the height of that roof. Even if you're coming down the road, it's like just looking at a triangle away, it's like you're gonna see the far northern side of the top of the building. I mean, granted, we see Lawton Adams is, you know, he's got a lot going on over there, and and yours is definitely gonna be more pleasing to the eye, but I think maybe there's something where we can change the height and maybe change the slope on the roof, or there's something where maybe condense it.
We kept the flat roof on it so that we could, and it's just the peaks, you know, at the end of
That one, yeah, the highest corner.
You're not gonna get the whole thing shaded, but, you know, we could.
Right.
You know, 15 feet would go a long way. I mean, most people put in 6 foot and 8 foot trees. If we push the height up and it was something like that, that would go a long way to buffering it, and then eventually there'll be 20 something. You're never gonna obscure the whole thing, but as long as you don't see that much of it, it shouldn't be that much of a burden. Across the street, it looks like they're 15 feet to 20 feet
At least.
tall right now.
Yeah.
And that does a good job over there.
I mean, are there just tall trees on either side of the property that's gonna help also with eye screening?
They're more of a canopy tree as opposed to looking through.
So they're more like
The canopy's
40
higher,
feet, 50 feet up?
if more.
And they're mostly deciduous.
Yeah.
And so that's creates the issue in the wintertime.
When did the zoning get changed? I was not aware of that zoning being changed.
I don't know.
You know when that was?
So town board doesn't necessarily have public hearing requirements.
We don't. That's where I was caught off guard on my.
No, I think they would have for a zoning change.
I had nothing mailed to me referring to the date that.
It's not, I wasn't aware that by code. I mean, they may have done a public hearing, but planning board has a public hearing requirement by code.
There was for it?
Okay.
I didn't get a letter for it. I'm within the property line. I figured I would have.
You would think you would have if it was
Absolutely.
gotten it.
But
It's not required then.
it's
So in this case, what we have.
I mean, for zoning, everything has to be noticed.
Right.
Us planning, everything has to be noticed.
the town
For town board,
Town board's different.
Yeah.
And they have the prerogative to make that change, and they made that change. So
they set the zoning laws.
we're really
So we have a commercial piece of property encapsulated by residential.
yeah. But to be fair,
Understood.
you do have Froggies and Lawton Adams. You do have
But to be fair, that's the way I bought my property, as residential.
100%.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at my best interest as well on this. And if this is the case, and they've already given somebody a commercial piece of real estate now, what is my property? What are my intentions for the future? Can I turn mine into a piece of commercial real estate?
You can always try.
That's the way it works, apparently. All right, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak in regard to this application? And Denise, Paul, do we have anybody else
Online.
online?
We do not.
Okay. All right. Could the applicant come back up again and maybe just address some of our questions? I know one of the questions was, on the south side of the property here, why do we have kind of a stub stone wall in the middle of the buffer area?
So I'm going to let our civil engineer respond to that.
Okay, maybe it's a slope issue, or I don't know what it is, aesthetics or?
If you're referring to this here?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's actually not a stone wall, it is a emergency discharge for stormwater mitigation.
Sorry, Ralph, can you get closer, please? Thank you.
Sorry. So it's a emergency discharge for our stormwater mitigation system.
Oh, so it represents underneath the ground?
It'll be flat on the ground, it's just a bed of gravel, just the water in case it needs to, it'll percolate up.
Can you put plants on top of that?
You can put plants next to it, I wouldn't say on top of it though.
Because that's our 10-foot buffer, so we're
Yeah.
losing
Okay.
vegetation buffer.
We can break it up so it's not just one long strip, so it can be, maybe 3 shorter strips and we can plant in between them.
Can it be moved someplace else or into the driving area?
Um,
Because I don't know, how are we going, if we're going to allow a 10-foot buffer with vegetation and we tell you to plant big spruce, or the planning board does, how is that gonna interfere with it?
we can reduce the size of it, and we can put it right, butt it up against the curb line. But we can change it instead of a long strip like that, we can make it, a 2x2 or a 3x3 area. It'll serve the same purpose.
And you need space between plantings anyway to allow for the root
Right.
systems.
Right.
Okay, that's a little bit odd, okay. And I think you heard what we were discussing, that in the areas where maybe 10 feet is allowed or is only available, but then maybe in areas where there is 20 or 30 feet, especially to the north of the property, where the gentleman who just spoke about his property, where maybe you can fit in 20 feet or 30 feet, right, correct, and below that.
Yeah.
That would be certainly an area, I think we could at least help him out and
Maybe
screen a little bit more.
something like this, where it's 10 feet just at this section, and then this section, and this section is 20 feet?
I think that,
Why would you go to 20? I mean, if in this back corner, if you can do the required 50, then you should.
they could do 50 or 30 or something else.
You should be the maximum,
This area here, we can do the 50.
right?
And then, this area will be, be less than 50, but it'll be greater than.
Just,
And why can't we move that drainage within, why can't that be moved so that it's out of the buffer zone?
Then it would be on the pavement area.
Can this be put someplace else, or because of
It's the
slope and everything?
slope and the topography of the land, that's the lowest point where it drains off the property.
Because
where you-
the concern I have is, even if it's in small areas and in between trees, it's gonna interfere with root systems and things like that, is, we don't want to have you put in buffer plants and then they die or don't take well.
are you picking up your roof leaders with that? What water, or surface water?
It's surface water, but it collects into a drainage system that is underneath the parking lot. That's our discharge.
It's like a dry well.
And it's also, but is it also picking up roof, or only surface water?
It is also picking up roof, yes,
So,
It's a dry well.
essentially. But it's not, the dry well's not right there. The dry well's actually on the pavement.
it's the entrance to a part of a drywall system, and because he's got his roof leaders here and here, that's the natural location for it. Because,
Well, it's also,
In the back.
said it's the lowest point.
yeah, well,
That's where the water's going.
We're already down to a 10-foot buffer though, and now we're taking up a significant chunk of that 10-foot buffer, so trying to look for a solution to that.
I can look into putting it on the pavement. In anything more than a 100-year storm, then there might be a puddle on the pavement for a little while until it drains down, but knowing the soils of this property, I don't think that should be an issue.
you could do a small section of permeable pavers, resolve it that way.
Yep.
There's ways to work around it, yeah.
Yeah, just,
Do a little slope difference or change.
but he's talking about this being an entrance, so if he needs to create a bigger entrance with something pervious, you can do that.
I think we should look at moving it.
Yeah. I think we've just, we've brought down the vegetative buffer from 50 to 10, and now in the 10, we're using up a significant chunk. Yeah, I think,
Right, yeah, and it's right,
right along, right.
So Tom, where do you want him to go to 50 wherever, you want him to go to the maximum that wherever he can?
I mean, it
Is
looks
that what we're talking about?
50, yeah, 50 or the maximum available up to the curb,
Okay, so,
which, right, the curb is, we can't go past the curb.
yep,
But it should be
So it's
50 feet or the maximum
You wanna read?
distance.
Use this one?
yeah, I just want to, if we can get him out of here tonight, I want to give him something, a drawing that we're gonna essentially have scanned in and part of their approval.
I mean, this plan is also subject to change, I would imagine, as you go through.
Well, if we're gonna have them come back, or we're gonna grant a variance subject to.
We've just asked Tom a couple of questions, and I didn't hear an answer either time. So is Tom on? Hello, Tom?
Talking about building
Yeah,
inspector, Tom?
So,
I'm here.
Oh,
I
Tom,
think you
there.
were talking.
Okay, so we had asked you a couple of questions. I hadn't heard from you.
What were the questions?
Well, you just asked him a question.
I was asking Ralph over here,
Oh.
our engineer, Mr. Alfonsetti. And I was asking Tom, so essentially, if we could, as long as we're imposing things on them, I don't want to take another month from them as well. So if we could give them a drawing, which, for their buffer, which on the north side, we can increase considerably.
Well, yeah, maybe we could just
So-
say the buffer should be
Here,
to a maximum of 50
Right.
feet, and
and then a line back here, we're not gonna, because this is a rear yard setback, this would be separate, right? We're only talking about the side yard. They don't need anything on rear or front. They just need side yard. So on side yard, it's the curb, and then it's going to go back here to the extent it can, to the 50, right?
Even in the rear yard, don't they need 50 feet because it's
The-
adjacent to residential?
They're not in front of us for.
Yeah,
They have it.
They have it.
we didn't exceed.
But you've already, okay.
Yeah, so we're just reviewing the two side yards. So to the extent we want to make this to 50 and follow this line here, and then on this side, if we follow this line, and then in the back it goes to 50, at that point in time, all we have is the question of them dealing with getting the stormwater away so that we can have a full amount of plants. And if we can give them a variance with those different pieces in it, I think everyone will be happy. Unless,
I mean, I would. That would be nice. I don't know if we want to get into the business of doing drawings. So
we could
just verbally tell them.
well, yeah,
but I mean, this plan could change subject to your going through the planning process, right?
Which is the case with any site plan application that gets a variance.
which is why I started at 20 foot.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute, we
So I think once
we're not dealing with the water. We're forgetting about the water and just going about it.
No, I think
No, we're gonna
I think we're still.
Still has to be.
Yeah, I think we're still dealing with the water.
I think we
that-
still are
that drain.
say,
Because it's going to affect the vegetative buffer. So I think we're gonna ask them to relocate that so that we can have trees in this area because that's a crucial area, and then we're gonna make sure that Mr. Azar is as well protected as we could provide.
that is 50 feet where it's,
Wherever they can meet the 50 feet.
And I think I think Mr. Azar has another comment to make.
yeah. Okay, sir, come on. Yes, just give us your name and address again, just so we have it for the record, yeah.
I just like microphones. George Azar, 265 Route 100.
Thank you.
Azar.
Looking at the print, I mean, I'm looking at it here, the way it's drawn, and if you look at my driveway on 265 in a little bit more of a bigger scale as opposed to the plot plan, as you come down my driveway, I look at the back of the building in some degree when I'm elevated, when I'm a little bit farther up the driveway. I just want to make sure, is there, and respect to the woman that's living in the house, she's a little schizophrenic. I think she's really afraid to come to places and have this meeting. But does she have a buffer, like a natural buffer that would be in the back of this building?
Yes.
The full 50 feet.
It's a full 50 feet of buffer, and we're talking about maybe the same things that we'll have on the side. And some thickness, because I'm sure that her daughter lives in Long Island, and she asked me, can you go to the meeting and represent my mother in some degree? And I told her, I don't think the buffer is going to be, stopped just by the side lots. It's going to continue to the back.
Yes.
And the actual plants are not, since they don't need a variance, it's not in front of us, but the planning board would be a good place for you to represent her and talk about actual plants and what's happening back there.
Well, I will try and get her daughter up here for that meeting or somebody to represent them.
Yep.
But I just wanted to make sure, because at least I can talk to her tomorrow about it. Okay? Thank you again.
That's the full 50.
Right, because that back buffer is obviously already wooded,
Yep.
but we'd need some evergreens.
Well, but we're not, with the back buffer, we don't have a right to deal with.
Right.
So
Any-
and that's kind of why I was, since this is in the back buffer, right? That's kind of why I was trying to keep with the 20 feet here and keep with this there, because it's an easy thing to write and it makes sense. And then on the other side, you go from 10 to the 20, and then it's articulable.
Because where you can go back 50, you're coming already back 50.
Yeah,
from the
it's
other
already-
side, so it's already built into it. You don't have
Yep.
to double.
And the only, and they're gonna put, in between the curb and here anyway, they're gonna put some flowers. There's nothing else, flowers or grass anyway. There's nothing else to be done in there.
So the condition of approval that I think we're all driving towards is a 10-foot minimum buffer based on the variance, but wherever possible, reasonably feasible to accommodate a greater depth of buffer to increase conformity with code, we would strive to achieve that and, perhaps to the satisfaction of the planning board as part of its site plan approval.
And just to remove this drainage area on the south buffer side.
Yeah.
And relocate that, so to speak.
Which our civil tells me we can do.
That's an engineering issue, right?
Okay.
Right, I mean, is that what we're talking about?
That's what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
The question is, do we want to use the language of the attorney, which is to strive and leave it in the hands of the planning board?
I don't want to use.
Or we want to be more specific, so.
I want a drawing with the new that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do this, because
Yeah.
it's an easy way
It's only
to
20
get them out.
It's not more than 20 feet.
Well, it's more than 20 feet back here.
Yeah, but
more
you
than
gotta-
20 feet in
it's
here.
not more than 20 feet back there because you have the 50.
You have the 50
setback
feet.
buffer.
On this side of the 50, on this side of the 50-foot buffer, there is,
Right. Correct, which would already be,
and there's an area here towards, the front where it would also be more.
right, so we can solve for it.
So,
there.
well, we can solve for that, but we can't really articulate that in a motion or draw a map tonight,
Well,
which is why I would not be inclined.
Well, that's what.
Where accessible more than 10 feet, go to 20 feet.
I don't think that's,
I'm just,
I disagree with that approach, that's all.
okay, yeah, I'm just trying to be practical. And we're asking the applicant to do some stuff, and
I mean, I think, yeah, I mean,
I'd rather not ask him to take another month.
Yeah, I think we could do it with wording. I think we could say that we'll grant them the variance, but then in the areas where there's more space available, they should go up to the maximum code, 50 feet. So if there's 30 feet available, you do 30. If there's 40, you do 40. If there's 50, you do 50.
And that's,
Along those two.
That's what he's.
that's my client's intent to
They
meet.
seem to be willing to do that.
They couldn't do any more
to
than that.
the proposed curb.
Correct.
Right,
To the existing proposed curb.
right.
Well, that's
'Cause
different.
it may.
It's not 20 feet. That's to the existing proposed curb.
Okay.
Would be a very clear definition.
Yeah. So
To the curb,
Up to
on the
50
plan submitted to the zoning board today.
Right, up to 50 feet.
Right.
Where allowable, where they can fit it. Some places they can only get 30. Some they can
The
get
50 feet or the
the maximum amount from curb to the property line.
One of the gentlemen wants to speak again.
Sir, just give us 1 second. Let's just resolve this, and I'll let you speak. Sure. So is that what we're talking about here? And removing this drainage
Yes.
situation?
Yeah. I think so.
I think that's reasonable.
And the type of vegetation is to be approved by,
Right. Something of a sufficient height.
and density. Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, trying to.
Yeah, we can give some guidance on that in our decision.
Good job. Good job.
Sir, maybe I'll have you come up if you have another comment or question. Just give us your name and address again. We just need this for the record. I'm sorry.
Dick Canary, 11 Anorak Drive. All your discussion is related to a two-dimensional plan. You really have to take into account the topology, especially on the Highview Terrace side, because the two-dimensional plan, I don't think,
I know you've mentioned that
Well,
topography issue.
but you aren't mentioning it at all.
Okay,
the planning board will handle
yeah.
that topography.
That's really,
Yeah, all,
I think that's your consideration, because you're deciding on putting trees where it won't make any difference.
the code requires a buffer,
We're
right? So,
deciding on the size of that buffer zone. The planning board will decide what goes in that buffer.
Fine.
Yep.
We can get more on this side, right?
Okay. Any further comments from the public at this point in time? Does the applicant have anything further to say at this point in time?
I don't believe so, unless you have any questions for us. There any clarify for you?
Any further questions or comments the board would like to make? I think we have a general outline of what we're talking about. We good to go?
I had it written and then my computer died, so give me a second.
And you will email me, correct?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, sir.
So it sounds like we'll be approving the variance, subject to certain conditions and subject to planning board approval of the final details on this. All right. Okay, any further comments from the board before we go for a vote on this? Or you need another minute just to,
Yeah, just,
sure, take your time, get your wording down. This is certainly a very nice-looking self-storage facility compared to what we normally experience.
We agree. I mean, that was certainly the intention.
And I think that's probably part of the reason the zoning change was granted as well. And they call it transitional, right? Going commercial to retail, to residential.
Yeah, I don't think the town board was gonna grant you a cinder block, orange block building in there with flat roofs. I don't think you're gonna win on that one. No, that would not be winning. That would not be a winning argument right now.
Hey, can I try this on for
Sure,
seconds?
fair enough.
We're not making a motion yet.
This is a draft motion. So my draft motion is to grant a north plus a south side variance for side yard setbacks not to exceed 40 feet and to follow the curbs as shown on the plan dated August 25th, 2023, identified as the site layout, so long as the vegetative buffer is not infringed upon by the applicant's stormwater discharge system.
Okay,
Am I missing anything?
I think that sounds good.
sounds good.
So, sorry, the first part about the 40 feet?
Yeah, so motion to grant a north plus a south side yard setback variance not to exceed 40 feet and to follow the curbs as shown on the site layout dated August 25th, 2023.
But it's not a side yard, it's a vegetative.
It's a side yard vegetative setback.
Yeah.
Maybe we should
Just
add.
add-
Yeah, I'll add the word, yes.
Yeah.
But so-
Yes.
Side yard
Just to clarify.
vegetative buffer,
We're super clear. Yep.
buffer.
Did you have a question?
My engineer just pointed out, and the additional buffering requirement is up to the required maximum side yard buffer of 50 feet.
Yes, up to,
Up to the maximum of 50.
yeah, well, we can't impose any more than the code
Of course.
anyway, so
Yeah.
I agree with Mr. Alfonsetti.
And do we want to make any reference that, anything about the planning board taking over, but I guess that speaks for itself.
It's a matter of course.
They'll do it.
Yeah, they'll have to just do it.
Bart, did that mention the relocation of the,
Yeah, so I said so long as the vegetative buffer is not infringed upon by the applicant's stormwater discharge system.
okay, thank
So
you.
that's the condition.
They'll have to move the system.
And would you want
Rework it.
to give the planning board a heads up just so that they understand what we did here?
They'll be made aware.
Yeah, they'll read the variance.
We'll
The variances will be submitted as part of the package to the planning board.
and their site plan review will look at our stormwater design.
Right.
Yep.
But that's a condition of our approval, is to get that stormwater thing.
Yes.
Construction out of there, yeah. Right. Okay.
Anyone have anything else?
I think that's going to pretty much do it.
I'd-
Right, are we ready to vote on this
Well, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, yes, well, no, yeah, I know.
Action.
Well, yeah, anything further that the applicant has before we go to a vote?
Nothing from us.
Okay, and no further comments from the public? Okay, take a motion as the type of action?
Type 2.
Second.
Ms. DiPolito?
Aye.
Mr. Hardin?
Aye.
Mr. Lansky?
Aye.
Mr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Padavani?
Aye.
Chairman Canestra?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion in regard to the variance before us?
I'd like to make a motion to grant a north side plus a south side yard vegetative buffer variance not to exceed 40 feet and to follow the curbs as shown on the August 25th, 2023 site layout, so long as the vegetative buffer is not infringed upon by the applicant's stormwater discharge system.
Second.
Ms. DiPolito?
Aye.
Mr. Gio? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hardin.
Aye.
Mr. Lansky?
Aye.
Mr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Padavani?
Aye.
Chairman Canestra?
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations, your application is granted with those conditions.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Nice evening.
Thank you, have a good evening. Last item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the August 15th, 2023 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Any changes or concerns?
No.
No?
Change.
Okay, I'm just going to approve by voice consensus. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nope.
Any abstentions? Okay. So I've been informed right now that there are no items on the agenda for November, so we are not going to be having our November 21st zoning board meeting. So our next meeting will be third Tuesday in December, which will be December 19th, 2023. Any other further matters that we need to discuss? Any other issues before we adjourn the meeting? Okay, so we're going to adjourn the meeting. Good night, everyone, and thank you, and we'll see you in December.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. And Bart, I'll look for your email. Thanks.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Paul.
Have
Good
a
night,
happy
everybody.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.